So an interesting situation. Like if the Genius Act passes, stablecoins will be safer than bank deposits by law, which is a place where we wouldn't have expected to be 2 years ago.
Alrighty, so what is going on, everybody? In today's video breakdown, we are going to be going over some groundbreaking fundamental developments that have been taking place on the XLR network, proving that XLR is one of, if not, the leading interoperability solution in the Web3 ecosystem. So for those of you all who are new to XLR, if you're watching this as a recording and you're not a part of the private CYPRX community, there's a whole bunch of free resources that I've created for you guys in a YouTube playlist going over this project. There's over 23 video breakdowns in this playlist, and none of them offer any insights on price analytics or price predictions. These are all just research-driven videos where I've gone over documents, panel discussions, and fundamental developments all surrounding the XLR network. And these are from back 8 months ago. So there's a lot of detailistic overview breakdowns here that you guys can go back and recap on if you're new to this project and you know nothing about it and you want to really thoroughly educate yourself on all of the developments surrounding this project. Okay. So first, just make sure that you guys go back and check that out. I'm just going to go ahead and say this outright. I believe that over the next coming couple of months, as more people catch on, especially in the XRP community, realize that XLR is the interoperable bridge for the XRPL EVM sidechain, XLR is going to gain a lot more traction, and people are going to start to act like they've been talking about it forever. Here at CYPRX, we've been covering this project for almost over a year now. So just make sure that you guys go tap into some of this research. It's very extensive and will give you a thorough understanding of why this project should be at the top of everybody's priority list on paying attention to. Moving on, this video clip that we played for you guys on the YouTube over 6 months ago from Interop Labs has aged so well. And this is a collaborative effort between Momento Blockchain, Deutsche Bank, and Interop Labs, where they openly mentioned incorporating XLR's interoperability solutions into this backend infrastructure of this Project Guardian initiative. So just take a second real fast and listen. This is going to set the tone for today's video breakdown via some ongoing developments that were just recently announced surrounding all of these organizations and partnerships. So just take a second here and listen to this.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. To unlock new fund innovations and distribution at scale. Deutsche Bank, driving innovation as part of the Monetary Authority of Singapore's Project Guardian, collaborates with Momento Blockchain and Interop Labs on the minimal viable product. Momento Blockchain, using ZK Sync's cutting-edge zero-knowledge technology, has created Momento ZK Chain, a powerful, secure, and scalable blockchain. With features like soul-bound token for investor management and fund compliance, Paymaster to simplify gas fee payments using traditional payment rails, custom-built Explorer for managed transaction privacy and regulatory oversight, and built-in smart contracts to service digital fund life cycles with a central view into asset servicing books of records across chains. The future of digital fund management and asset servicing is here. Leveraging on Axelar Network's industry-leading cross-chain interoperability technology, Momento ZK Chain can connect to over 60 blockchain ecosystems, offering scalability and flexibility for global integration.
Right. So I just wanted you guys to hear that little tiny key snippet that they are utilizing XLR's technology as an interoperability stack solution. And this just, again, like I mentioned, is an old video. This is from 6 months ago, but just to show the type of research that we do here, you know, nobody's paying attention to this type of stuff. Interop Labs is the key developer behind the XLR network, for those of you all who don't know. And this is just going to go hand in hand, like I said, with a recent fundamental development where XLR network just posted this. As stablecoins boom, XLR and Deutsche Bank are building compliant rails for tokenized finance, introducing the Project Dama 2 light paper. So we'll full circle and come back to this. This is from June 17th, 2025. But I want to go over and show some other things that XLR Network has been cooking up via some recent announcements that they have made. So if we go to Sergey on his LinkedIn profile, he said here just a week ago. So this is recent, relatively speaking, within the last couple of days as of time of recording. Decentralized interoperability is not nice to have. It's a fundamental requirement that will drive open innovation across the blockchain space. Think TCP/IP. It's an open standard that enabled the entire internet industry. That's what XLR network is doing for Web3. Okay, that is a huge statement right there. Participate, build, interoperate via open networks. And then he kind of reposted this XLR network post where it says, members of the Interop Labs team, CEO Sergey, head of legal and policy at Jason, and head of institutional operations, Christopher Robbins, met with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission today. So you can clearly see that they're meeting with regulators. They're open to discussion on these interoperability solutions with key participants in the space like the SEC, which again just goes to show that they are falling in line with regulatory compliance and the transition over to this more regulated infrastructure. Topics that were discussed are number one, benefits of decentralized interoperability, security guarantees for permissionless networks, and how interoperability connects compliant systems. And so here is a link where you can go and you can preview the, excuse me. Here is a link where you can go and you can preview the slides from the SEC roundtable that they had here in the meeting. Here's a little tiny picture of these two gentlemen in front of the SEC building, which I found interesting. And then here I actually found the entire presentation where they went on to, have this presentation at this event. Okay, so I just wanted to play a little tiny video clip where it briefly goes over kind of what XLR is. Here you can see it says, Jason, the gentleman, head of legal policy at Interop Labs, explores the benefits of decentralization and interoperability for regulators and policymakers, recorded at the PG Pretty Good Policy for Crypto Breakfast Summit in 2025 at the USC Capitol campus in Washington, D.C. This talk highlights how decentralized blockchain networks like XLR address key financial oversight concerns while promoting market efficiency and stability. So just take a second. This is like a 30-second video clip.
Enter Axelar. Axelar is a public and permissionless blockchain that sits between blockchains. The movement of assets is done by a permissionless set of tokenomic incentivized validators. It has governance mechanisms in place around rewards, slashing, and quadratic voting, which are meant to maintain balanced voting. In addition, Axelar operates as a hub and spoke model. Rather than bilateral connections between networks, a connected network only needs to integrate into Axelar to then have access to all of the other connected networks.
So in a nutshell, right, that's kind of what XLR is for anybody that doesn't really know. It's a very simplistic breakdown and gives you a really good picture overview of how important the XLR network is to all the other blockchain ecosystems and connecting them all together. Now, this gentleman here, his credentials go so deep, and I think that that's an extremely important role considering that he's the head of legal policy. His credentials matter. So this is Jason Rozovsky's Interop Labs LinkedIn page, and you can just see some of the depth that he has in this space. So he was a legal intern at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, most likely has some deep connections in that field. He also worked as an assistant general at R3. For those of you guys who are deep in this space, you most likely know who R3 is. I feel like I shouldn't have to go over that. Also, Accenture, he was the global legal lead of blockchain at Accenture for 2 years. Now, Accenture is an organization that helps governments and high-end entities in the legal space with digital transformation. Okay, so for those of you guys that don't know Accenture, they are a massive player in this space as well. And interestingly enough, a Ripple partner. And then he also is a charter member of this Tech GC organization and now the head of legal policy at Interop Labs full time. So just to show you guys, this gentleman does have some very interesting credentials that I don't think we should be ignoring, considering that he was just at this, event presenting this PowerPoint that we're going to read thoroughly through to the SEC themselves. So this is from June 2025. This is the presentation that XLR gave. And I just want to kind of read thoroughly through this. It's only 11 slides. You can see here Sergey, Jason, and Chris Robbins, the gentleman that presented this slide. And we're just going to thoroughly read through this. So it says today, growing number of blockchains like Ethereum, Avalanche, and Cosmos. And the problem is that they have no connection to each other. Ethereum cannot connect to Avalanche, Avalanche to Cosmos, Ethereum to Cosmos. You guys can kind of see the infograph there. Well, the solution is decentralized interoperability. So this is where XLR plays a role. As the gentleman mentioned, he went over and briefly talked about what XLR is and how it's the interoperability layer between each of these networks. So it says here, XLR is the TCP IP of blockchains. Just as the TCP IP standard, just as the TCP IP standardization communication across fragmented internet networks, XLR provides a universal protocol layer that allows disparate blockchains to exchange data and value securely. Disparate blockchains, not desperate blockchains. Disparate blockchains to exchange data and value securely. Without TCP IP, every application would need to hard code custom logic for each network. So this kind of gives you a perspective on how important XLR is to the Web3 ecosystem. Similarly, without XLR, every blockchain integration would require costly bespoke code and security audits. I think I'm fumbling on my words because I haven't eaten today, so I'm a little hungry. I apologize. XLR's abstract cross-chain communication into a single interface similar to how a web browser abstracts the complexities of the underlying internet protocols. And here's just a little tiny infograph of that. And then they give just a broad overview of just some select institutional work, how they've worked with JP Morgan, they've worked with Apollo, they've also worked with Deutsche Bank, and they worked on a Bank of International Settlements with Monetary Authority Singapore project called Project Guardian. Okay. You can also see that they've partnered with collaborative organizations like Citi, MasterCard, Northern Trust, just to name a few. Principles of decentralized interoperability, it goes on to say, non-custodial, control of software components that hold users' assets resides with diverse nodes, permissionless operations where any individual or entity may participate in core functions. We don't need to really read through all this stuff. And then it just says, thank you, right? So this is the presentation just kind of going over what XLR is, and they presented this to the SEC. Okay, so I just think that this is cool. This is great. This just shows a collaborative effort for them to work with regulators to kind of introduce them to these interoperability solutions and show them how XLR is solving real world problems in the Web3 ecosystem. All right. And the fact that they go on to mention that XLR is kind of similar to TCP IP and how important that was to the age of the internet. Well, again, just do the math. Long story short, I don't think that this is going to significantly boost price action overnight. But long term, if they're correct in analyzing that XLR is going to play the same role that TCP IP did for the internet, you guys can do the math and the numbers there for yourselves. I said here in a post just the other day on June 13th, interestingly enough, following some now recent announcements, we're always ahead of the curve here at CYPRX. I said traditional payments work because everything is interoperable. Most people don't understand that. Crypto is not there yet, but XLR is in the process of fixing that. Unlike risky centralized bridges, XLR is decentralized, non-custodial, and transparent, built for secure cross-chain payments. If you believe crypto will power everyday transactions, then interoperability is non-negotiable, and XLR is leading that charge. And I posted this little tiny stablecoin standard article in collaboration with XLR and the Stellar Development Foundation, where they talked about the importance of the XLR network and the interoperability solutions that they provide for stablecoins. Here is that post here. You can see that this is by XLR and the Stellar Development Foundation. So you can see another major player that we know in this game, like Stellar, collaborating with XLR to kind of familiarize this space on how important interoperability is in this ecosystem. You guys can thoroughly read through this. I'll drop this in the Discord after this presentation. Now, something that I find interesting, considering that we were talking about stablecoins and the importance of XLR's interoperability solutions a couple days ago. Well, I want you guys to listen to this gentleman here. This gentleman has nothing to do with XLR, but what he says is extremely important surrounding something that could be passed in Congress in coming up, right? So the Stablecoin Act, the Stablecoin Bill, take a second and listen to what this gentleman says. This is Lucas, the co-founder and CEO of M0. M0 is a stablecoin provider in this space. I'm not too entirely familiar with, how to go about explaining that to you. Long story short, M0 empowers users to build customizable, compliant, and yield-generating stablecoins. So that's who this gentleman is. And they work with some of the largest organizations, for example, systemically important banks. So I'd say that what he has to say is extremely important. So just listen to what he says about stablecoins becoming safer than bank deposits at your local bank. All right, just take a second here and listen.
You custody, or where do you store these funds and treasuries?
So every minter of the M token, so everyone who gives birth to these digital assets that then the builders can embed, needs to be compliant with their requirements, regulatory requirements, and the highest standards. So currently, we have one issuer that is an offshore issuer in the Cayman Islands, similar to many other offshore issuers. The offshore issuers is not an owner of the reserves. Actually, the reserves are held by an SPV, which is a Luxembourg SPV, and the custodian is a German globally systemic bank. So I don't know if the listeners are familiar, but there is like a small group of financial institutions called globally systemic impactful banks, GSIBs, which are the largest banks and the safest banks because they have very, very high prudential requirements. So these are the banks that cannot fail because they're really too big to fail. And there are not so many. There are probably 20 in the world, if I'm not wrong. And one of the banks that is actually storing the reserves for the issuer on M0 network is one of those in Germany. So there is a complete separation of the ownership of the assets and the custody of the assets with the business that is actually issuing. And similarly will happen if there is an issuer in the US as soon as legislation passes. The issuer might be a money transmitter, so to say, so has the regulatory requirement, but they need to custody in a segregated manner the reserves so that the reserves are bankruptcy remote again versus the bankruptcy risk of the issuer. So if the issuer goes down because the business builders are bad at doing business, the state is actually protecting the stablecoin holders by maintaining the reserves. So an interesting situation. Like if the Genius Act passes, stablecoins will be safer than bank deposits by law, which is a place where we wouldn't have expected to be 2 years ago.
Super.
Right. So this gentleman here, like I said, the co-founder and CEO of M0, which has nothing to do with Axelar, mentioned that, one of their key partners is a globally systemic bank out of the top 20 banks that meet those threshold requirements. And then he goes on to specifically say the Genius Act, if it's passed, that's what the bill that I was talking about. He said that stablecoins will become, more effective than bank deposits, which is a massive statement, right? That's huge for somebody to come out and say, considering the landscape that was painted towards us in previous years, right? So we can clearly see a massive maturation of this ecosystem. Now, fast forward, right? We see Axelar. What are they continuously announcing? We had the collaborative effort between Stellar and Axelar talking about stablecoin interoperability, utilizing Axelar as an interoperability solution. And now we have June 17, 2025. As stablecoins boom, Axelar and Deutsche Bank are building compliant rails for tokenized finance, introducing the Project Dama 2 light paper. So we're going to thoroughly go through and read this. And it just goes to show that in some way, shape, or form, Axelar is tapped in with the changing tides. Okay, so let's go over and read this from Business Wire. This is recent from June 17, 2025. It's the same date as of time of recording. And it says here, Deutsche Bank, Momento Blockchain, and Axelar. Keep in mind, we showed you guys 6 months ago that they had already chosen Axelar as their interoperability solution for this project. So this is kind of old news to us, but still continuing developments behind the scenes. An Axelar network developer, Interop Labs, today published a light paper describing the digital asset management Access Dama 2 project in detail. The paper provides a blueprint for a next-generation tokenization platform built on public blockchains with regulatory alignment and privacy as a core design principle. Designed to accelerate the adoption and servicing of tokenized funds, stablecoins, and other real-world assets, the platform will enable assets wealth managers, token issuers, and investment advisors to easily create and service tokenized assets, distributing them securely and compliantly across connected blockchain ecosystems and financial networks. Project Dama 2 was recently recognized in the Global Custodians 2025 Leaders in Custody Asia Awards for Innovation and Smart Contract Technology. The light paper captures extensive research with potential asset issuers led by Deutsche Bank and lays out the unique design of DAMA 2, including blockchain as a service model that minimizes upfront investments, user-friendly applications and interface layers with an app store to access fund smart contract designs, privacy-enabled layer 2 smart contract environments, built by Momentum's blockchain ZK Sync ZK chain technology. I did a full entire breakdown in a previous video in this playlist where they chose Axelar for this specific project here that they're talking about, right? In collaboration with ZK Zinc and Mementos, right? So make sure that you guys go back and watch that. And then manage token issuance across multiple blockchains via XLR network, okay? Now, I want to show you guys in this report how there is an onset of influencers that will use this fuel for likes and clicks and be like, oh, this is going to drive massive price appreciation overnight for XLR. XLR next week is going to go to $5. I'm going to show you all how in their documents, they literally tell you that none of this is happening yet. However, it is all setting the stage for it to take place in the near future, which is why we're not seeing any significant price action right now, even given this massive announcement, okay? Just to make things transparent and show you guys the real research that we do here in this community. Now it says, as an $84 trillion in global wealth transformation shift towards digital native generations by 2045, according to the Cerulli Associates, a wealth management research firm, the light paper arrives at a critical moment, offering a clear framework for tapping into a demographic that is 5 times more likely than baby boomers to hold crypto or digital assets. DAMA 2 aims to close the gap between TradFi systems and blockchain innovation, giving investment professionals easy-to-use tools for token issuance, compliance, multi-chain distribution, and asset servicing without in-house blockchain development expertise. DAMA 2 represents how public chains have evolved for institutional financial use cases and how leading applied technologies can meet operational resilience and regulatory goals via one single platform, said Boon Chan, innovation lead at securities and technology advocacy at Deutsche Bank. Tokenization is moving out of the sandbox and into production, but challenges still remain, from vendor sprawl to siloed liquidity across blockchains, which create barriers for both investors and asset issuers, said Sergey, the co-founder of XLR Protocol and the CEO of Introp Labs. DAMA 2 will offer institutions a compliant path to enter the digital asset space and scale securely across all blockchains without limitation. That is a massive statement coming from this gentleman here, because not only does he say it will, right, be the compliant layer for these financial institutions to enter into this space, but the fact that, you know, this is coming out and breaking now, considering the regulatory landscape that we're about to roll into, it couldn't come at a more crucial time. Okay, so just thoroughly reading that to you guys, that's kind of what the white paper goes over. I want to just head over. Let me stop sharing this screen and let's go over to the white paper. You do need business credentials to download this white paper. I downloaded it for you guys. I will drop it in the research section so that way you don't have to make up business credentials to download it. And I'll send it to you guys in the research chat. Like I mentioned after this call, I will drop all the links on this call in that chat. So here is the white paper, just going over a couple of different highlights. And then this is going to transition over to our call from yesterday, where D'Angelo asked about, you know, my perspective on other interoperability solutions and which ones I think are going to play a leading role. I chose XLR as the top one. Wormhole is my second option, layer 2 is my third, and then any ones after that fall under that top 3 category there. DAMA 2, accelerated asset tokenization as servicing for regulations and institutions. June 17th, 2025. I'm just going to go through and read some of my highlights briefly. I don't want to touch too much on this because of the Business Wire report that we just read. So it says here, DAMA Digital Asset Management Access 2 is a blockchain layer 1, 2, 3 platform. That's pretty crazy, right? It's all 3 layers that represents a leap forward in financial market operating models to solve critical digital asset market entry and access challenges faced by asset and wealth managers. It is positioned to address shortcomings of current blockchain and TradFi systems. DAMA 2 covers liquidity fragmentation, complexity, and accessibility barriers while ensuring alignment with evolving regulatory frameworks, which is cool to see. It says down here, the Momentum ZK chain was successfully deployed on mainnet back in May 2025. This is the thing I was telling you guys about. I did a video breakdown on where they chose XLR in collaboration with Momentum ZK chain and ZK Sync. And the deployment of new applications and use cases will be ongoing. Interop Labs, the initial developer of the XLR network, a leading blockchain interoperability expert, provides resilient connections to over 70 different blockchains to facilitate distribution and other strategic possibilities. Developed by a collaborative effort with Deutsche Bank, Memento Blockchain, and Interop Labs, Dama 2 incorporates advanced multi-chain features including bridge management, modular compliance frameworks, on-chain investor registries, and expense tracking mechanisms to support fund valuation and operational transparency. These are all like big words that people that are not in the crypto native ecosystem will understand. And so it kind of gate guards this information because people will see these words and they'll be like, I don't need to know any of this stuff, which is why you should be paying attention to this because this is all the stuff that's going to help build out the new financial system. Dama 2 will feature an open architecture for custody wallets, AI enhanced accessibility for users and issuers, time to market competitiveness as a planned roadmap milestone. Then it says here, this is talking about the $84 trillion wealth transformation that is underway and how Dama 2 is a comprehensive competitive tokenization solution that offers industry issuers of digital assets and funds intuitive user interfaces with one-step access to create, program, and launch distributive and services to their blockchain-based products. It is built to allow issuers and investment managers to ride the momentum. Let me rephrase that because this is a big sentence here. This project here, this project Dama, it says here, it is built to allow issuers and investment managers to ride the momentum of a generational shift in investing. Millennials are more likely than baby boomers to own crypto and digital assets. Okay, so it's pretty much telling you guys what it's built out to do. Then down here, all right, this is where I kind of just want to scroll and focus your attention on because what I find interesting is they actually block out the names of these other interoperability solutions. But here in this community, because we do the research, we know which ones they're talking about. So if we come down here, I believe it's on page 18. Yep, here it is. It talks about this interoperability protocol by comparison. So it's comparing XLR, right, with other interoperability solutions. So just to revert back to our Zoom call yesterday where D'Angelo was like, hey, what interoperability solution are you most focused on? This is why I told you guys XLR, because it beats in terms of stats all the other ones. So look at this. It says interoperability protocol A. So it doesn't mention the project. So it says here project, interoperability protocol A, interop protocol B, and interop protocol C. So it's talking about 4 other interoperability solutions here, but leaves them blank. So people that don't know what they're talking about are going to be confused, but we're going to go into detail and show you guys which ones those are. And then it mentions XLR, right? So down here, it says 77 chains supported compared to the other ones. One of them does support 90 plus chains, which is interesting. Decentralized and permissionless, all the other ones have a no, right? XLR has a yes. Active validators, it has the most active validators with 75 plus. Full stack interoperability, every other interop solution has a no, and XLR has a yes. Connection design, point to point, hub and spoke. So only one other interop solution has a hub and spoke model. XLR has the hub and spoke model. Then down here, it talks about different partners, and XLR has the most ones, right? Last but not least, approved by Uniswap. So this is what's important here. This is what's going to be able to tell us what other interop protocols are mentioned in this report. And only one other interop protocol C got a check mark. So this is most likely going to be Wormhole here, right? And then XLR got a check mark. So if we come back over here, this is the report that I was telling you guys about, why I picked XLR as my top interop pick, is because if we go back to a couple months ago when we had this bridge assessment report from the Uniswap Foundation, and it just pretty much goes over in detail, which we're going to cover, the bridge assessment report and the bridge solution that Uniswap was picking. Okay, if we come all the way down here to this graph, it says the analysis and summary. And you can see right here the interoperability mechanisms that Uniswap was testing, right? Wormhole, XLR, Layer 0, Seller, D-Bridge, multi-chain, so a couple of other different interop solutions. And Wormhole and XLR were the only ones that met the interoperability requirements for Uniswap. However, XLR over top of Wormhole was the only one that met all of the thresholds. So plugging this entire fundamental piece here, I just literally copied the whole entire thing, went over to ChatGPT, So that way you guys can see I didn't like try to program ChatGPT to tell me anything specific. I simply said to ChatGPT, scrolling all the way up to the top, I said, what requirements did XLR meet and how did it outperform the other interoperability solutions? And so this was ChatGPT's reply. So we're just going to thoroughly read through this so that why you guys understand why XLR came out on top. So it says here, and keep in mind, by the way, this is not me telling you guys that XLR came out on top. This is the report that recently dropped from Deutsche Bank, where it tells you that XLR was the only interoperability solution here down at the bottom that met all of these requirements, right? Checks all the boxes, okay? So let's just thoroughly read through this so that way you guys have a firm understanding of what requirements and thresholds they meet. Number one, protocol requirements that XLR met. Protocol architecture and security and decentralization. Proof of stake model. XLR employs a proof of stake based validation mechanism with sound crypto economic guarantees, which means validators' misbehavior can be penalized, a core requirement for safety. Validator set quality. The validator set was assessed to be sufficiently large, independent, and decentralized. Safety and liveliness. XLR's network design was able to meet high thresholds for safety, no false execution of governments, and liveliness guaranteed message delivery. Critical for DAO operations. Number two, implementation and maturity. They had a robust code base. They had development practices. The committee found strong attention to detail, high activity, and adherence to best practices in protocol development and emergency response mechanisms, where XLR demonstrated clear documented recovery and incident response procedures. Number three, operational transparency and governance. They have a multi-sig transition plan. At the time of review, XLR had 4 out of 8 multi-sigs for key protocol operations. The committee approved XLR conditionally and required that its multi-sig had to be phased out by July 31st, 2023. XLR publicly committed to this transformation, showing alignment with best practices and government evolutions. Transparency, operational processes, and validator performance were clearly documented and observable. And then they had cross-chain risk framework compliance, where XLR scored highly across all 4 risk domains: protocol architecture, protocol implementation, and operational risk, along with network risks. So last but not least, it mentions why XLR outperformed the other interoperability solutions: strong assurances, security-first philosophies, proven operational maturities, and last but not least, why did XLR win the Uniswap trust? XLR met and exceeded a high security, decentralization, and operational maturity standard set by Uniswap's DAO for cross-chain governance. While most bridges failed on validator transparency or protocol maturity, XLR delivered a proof-of-stake model with robust validator incentives, strong development practices, and a clear roadmap to decentralized governance. It's a conditional approval pending multi-sig removal that puts it ahead of the pack as a reliable pillar for secure cross-chain decision-making. All right, so just in a nutshell, I wanted to cover that for you guys. I found that interesting that they incorporated it in the white paper. So that's it for the Deutsche Bank and XLR announcement that we just recently saw via this DAMA 2 light paper and this recent development. There are some other developments that XLR has recently been a part of. For example, XLR Network also just recently posted this as well, June 17, 2025. And interestingly enough, it also has to do with stablecoins. So stablecoins must be ubiquitous. UBXY links stablecoin issuers like Paxos and Ripple to banks plus fintechs, allowing seamless redemption of stablecoins for fiat at pair value. It needs open access to all blockchains. That is where XLR comes in. XLR Foundation is proud to join Galaxy, CB Ventures, FoundShares Fund, BitGo, Fireblocks, Zodia Custody, all major institutional players there, plus others in the UBX Association supporting the UBX's planned Q4 launch. By the way, I forgot to tell you guys and show you all in the document that all the stuff from the DAMA 2 thing is kind of just like a test, and it mentions that, they're all solutions that are going to be scaled out later on this year. I don't remember where I had it highlighted in the document, but it just mentions that it's going to be, oh yeah, here it is, right? I just want to show you guys that because, you're going to get those people on the internet that are like, oh, you're making all these fundamental video breakdowns, but price action isn't doing shit. It's because it hasn't been unveiled yet. It says it right here, what to expect in this slide paper, right? So they literally tell you DAMA 2 is targeted to be unveiled as an MVP in the second half of 2025. So that could mean tomorrow, that could mean in December, right? December 30th, right before the year ends, who knows, right? So just to show you guys that real fast, I always like to back kind of why there's the lack of price action. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So back to this report. So let's go thoroughly through and read this. This will be kind of the second to last thing that I have to show you guys today, where it says UBX is founded by a 30-year payment veteran to build global stablecoin acceptance. And this is just from 3 hours ago. UBX, the stablecoin clearing system that enables regulated banks and fintechs to redeem stablecoins at face value today, announced its $10 million seed round led by Galaxy Ventures with participation from a few other major market names here. UBX is designed to deliver stablecoin ubiquity, meaning global acceptance of many stablecoins. Participating issuers including Paxos, Ripple, Agora, Transfora, Monero, and a couple of others. The stablecoin market structure today has barriers to mass adoption. The paradigm of on and off ramping into and out of the crypto world is a bottleneck for issuers. Each stablecoin issuer has to build their own distribution network at great cost. Corporates and banks cannot currently hold stablecoins on their balance sheet as cash equivalents. UBYX addresses these issues and expands the market by providing clear systems for stablecoins, connecting multiple issuers with multiple receiving institutions, allowing redemption for stablecoins for fiat at pair value into the existing bank and fintech accounts. Then down here, it does mention scaling partners will provide TradFi players with wallets, blockchain analytics, and other technology enablers. Launch partners including Axelar, BitGo, Chain Analysis, Chavinet Advisors, Copper, and a couple of others are incorporated in this groundbreaking announcement here. So this is just great to see. Again, just more ongoing developments showing that Axelar is one of the leading interoperability solutions in the Web3 ecosystem. Last but not least, okay, people got to pay attention to what is happening surrounding the XRP EVM sidechain developments, right? For people that don't know, there was some massive announcements surrounding XLR EVM sidechain capabilities at Apex 2025 last week. One of these posts here that caught my eye from XLR Network says, this is so simple that many people will miss it. $200 billion in liquidity unlocked on the XRP ledger and XLR soon. And so remember, before I started the Zoom call, I told you guys that one of the ETFs that was launched for XLR, and the reason why they launched it is because they saw XLR being in the top 20 asset. Again, these statements, I don't tread lightly on these. I think that they're said for a specific reason. You have to assume that these people that are meeting with large organizations behind the scenes that have experts on their team from freaking R3, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and Accenture, they probably know what they're talking about. It's just all going to play out over the long-term horizon. And so this was a recently announced fundamental piece from June 11, 2025. XRP Ledger will be compatible with Ethereum smart contracts via the sidechain launch in summer 2025. After years of testing, the XRP Ledger will finally launch its Ethereum virtual machine compatible sidechain in the second quarter of 2025. There's literally only like 2 weeks left of the second quarter, so I'm assuming that there's going to be a major announcement here of it going live on mainnet relatively soon. Ripple Chief Technology Officer David Schwartz confirmed the timeline at Apex 2025, a move that integrates Ethereum smart contract capabilities into the XRPL ecosystem. The XLR network will function as the exclusive bridge for transferring assets, including the XRP required to create wrapped XRP, between the XRPL mainnet and the EVM sidechain. The architecture connects XRPL to more than 69 other blockchain ecosystems supported by Axelar. So anybody operating on the XRPL EVM sidechain will need to utilize Axelar as gas fees, and that is massive. So just take a second here and listen to what one of the co-founders of Axelar said a couple of weeks ago, now considering the developments that are taking place now.
One very exciting integration that's coming up is with XRPL. And a lot of people are familiar with Ripple, the company. Many people are familiar also with XRPL, which is the XRP ledger, where the XRP currency resides. And they have a new initiative where they're launching a new EVM chain to bring DeFi to the Ripple ecosystem. They have a new stablecoin and they're going to be using Axelar to bridge over XRP from the XRP ledger to the XRP ledger sidechain. It's an EVM sidechain, so that people can use it for gas to use the chain. So anyone who's going to be using DeFi on the EVM sidechain of XRPL will have to use Axelar to pay for gas. And we're talking about one of the biggest assets in the space. Again, $200 billion asset in SDV. And to my knowledge, that's the biggest asset that picked the canonical interoperability solution to bridge to another ecosystem, and they picked Axelar.
Right. So he specifically mentions that anybody that utilizes DeFi on the XRPL EVM sidechain will need to utilize Axelar for gas fees. So who knows what type of buy pressure that's going to have on said digital asset, in this case Axelar. But again, we can all speculate and give our best bets here. I'm not going to be the type of person that plays the sideline bet and ignores these developments. I'm going to be a key market participant that takes the risk and engages in these ongoing things taking place, not financial advice. Axelar ecosystem also just posted this out June 17, 2025. XRPL is launching an EVM sidechain, runs in parallel to the XRPL mainnet, uses XRP as gas, adds smart contract functionality, bridges 50 plus chains with Axelar. Last but not least, you can come over here and confirm this yourself. This is the xrplevm.org website. And if you come right down here to their frequently asked questions, it says here and talks about you can transfer XRP from the XRPL to the XRPL EVM sidechain by using the Axelar bridge. And so when this takes place, you're going to need Axelar for gas fees. Okay. So to wrap this up in a nutshell, this is just the one last fundamental piece. This was an announcement that they made via OpenBridge just 3 days ago. It says here, now applications can secure high value transactions using multi-chain cross protocols. OpenBridge is based on the ERC 7786 platform, a messaging passage standard endorsed by the Ethereum Foundation Interoperability Working Group. With OpenBridge, an application can combine multiple interoperability protocols or bridges in a single transaction, requiring verification from some or all of them. This configuration, sometimes called X of Y of N, can be used to enhance security for high-value transactions. Sometimes I forget you really got to fucking nerd out to read this stuff. Holy crap. But yeah, this is just another major announcement that they just launched with Open Zeppelin here just 3 days ago. So in a nutshell, as we kind of wind this down and wrap this up, I'm just here to show you guys that there have been some massive key developments surrounding the Axelar network over the past consecutive couple of days / weeks / months that I don't think people should be fading, yet for some odd reason are. And it's because they're always just focused on massive price appreciation instead of the development and the building out of the financial infrastructure and this new digitally native technology being incorporated into the financial system. And we can clearly see that Axelar is playing a major role in some way, shape, or form in enhancing the outdated financial infrastructure. So with that being said, for this specific video recording, before we jump into some of the Cobalt developments that you guys wanted to go over, that is all I had to share with you guys today. Groundbreaking stuff here. Again, be patient, fixate your attention on the things that matter and the projects that are actually doing important things in this space. Have a long-term vision and perspective and understand where this space is truly headed. Everything on chain in the near future, I'd say in the next 2 to maybe 5 years, we're going to see massive confirmation from more financial institutions that they are going to be tokenizing real world assets, bringing things on chain, and we're just going to continue to see ongoing developments as time progresses. And Axelar is at the forefront of some of these major groundbreaking fundamentals. So that is it for today. If you're watching this as a recording, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the platform. We do appreciate the love and the support. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video breakdown.